told you that to swing a golf club at like 120 miles an hour, the most important thing your physical body has to do is actually hit the brakes?
Right. It sounds completely counterintuitive, but it's true.
Welcome to today's deep dive. You know that one golfer at your local club who just seems to effortlessly launch the ball into the stratosphere?
Oh, yeah, without even looking like they're swinging out of their shoes.
Exactly. It always feels like magic. But it isn't. It's a highly precise, highly repeatable mathematical sequence.
It really is. I mean, it's the dividing line between working hard and working smart out on the course.
For sure. And today we are giving you the ultimate shortcut to understanding the holy grail of the golf swing, speed, accuracy, and sequence.
Because the underlying science here, it totally upends so much of what we intuitively think about generating power.
Which is why we've pulled together this incredibly dense stack of sources for you today. We're looking at advanced biomechanics research, including this fascinating master's thesis on partial versus full golf shots by Frederick Tinmark.
All right, the Tinmark study. Plus, we have the raw technical specs for cutting-edge 3D pose estimation AI models.
Yeah, specifically looking at systems like OnForm and Vive. And because we want you to actually, use this information, we're balancing out the heavy data with practical coaching transcripts.
Like the ones from the Titleist Performance Institute, TPI, and Athletic Motion Golf.
Yep, and Scratch Golf Academy too. So our mission today is to decode something called the kinematic sequence, like what it is, why it matters, how we can possibly measure it, and most importantly, how you can apply it to your own game.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the anatomy. What is physically happening in the body the very millisecond a golfer begins their downswing?
Well, to really visualize that, we need to explore a biomechanical concept called proximal to distal sequencing, or PDS.
PDS, okay.
An efficient golf swing, it has almost nothing to do with raw muscular strength or, how aggressively you can pull the club down toward the ball.
Wait, really? Because it feels like you just need to pull as hard as you can?
I know, but it's fundamentally a chain reaction. The movement has to initiate at the center of your mass. So, the proximal segments, like your pelvis and core.
Right.
And then it travels outward to the distal segments, your arms, hands, and the club.
So in a flawless sequence.
Your pelvis accelerates first, exactly. Then your thorax, or your torso, fires. Then your lead arm. And finally, the golf club itself.
I'm picturing like a bullwhip.
Right.
If you want to crack a heavy leather whip, you don't just shove the handle forward with all your might.
No, you'd get no speed at all.
Right. You snap the handle forward and then you firmly stop your hand. It's that sudden deceleration of the handle that takes all that kinetic energy and sends it rushing down the leather.
Until the tip breaks the sound barrier.
Yes.
That analogy captures the physics perfectly.
Is that essentially what our bones and muscles are doing?
It is. The deceleration of the proximal segment is the actual mechanism that transfers energy to the next segment in the chain.
Wow.
So your hips accelerate, they reach peak rotational speed, and then they have to hit the brakes.
They actually hit the brakes.
Hard. And that intense braking action acts as a catapult for the torso.
Okay, so the torso catapults, reaches its peak speed.
Hits its own brakes, and then fires the lead arm. We can see this vividly in the data from TPI and other 3D biomechanics labs.
I saw those numbers in the research. They were crazy.
For a highly accomplished golfer, the lead arm will hit a peak rotational speed of anywhere from 888 to 1,038 degrees per second.
Over 1,000 degrees per second. I mean, that is just a staggering amount of rotational force.
It's massive. But here's the critical data point that surprises most players. That peak arm speed. It happens about 2/3 of the way into the downswing.
So it's not peaking at impact.
It absolutely does not happen at impact. Once you hit that 2/3 mark, that lead arm must aggressively decelerate. Because if the arm just keeps speeding up, the energy never cascades down to the wrists, the hands, and ultimately the club head.
You just end up sort of dragging the club through the impact zone instead of whipping it. Let me push back on this a little bit, though. Because when I hear phrases like maximizing speed and 1,000 degrees per second, my brain immediately goes to the guy on the tee box trying to crush a driver, like 320 yards.
Sure, the big hitter.
Yeah. Does this complex braking sequence only matter when you are swinging for the fences? Like, what happens when you're 50 yards out and just trying to drop a wedge shot softly next to the pin?
You're hitting on a major misconception there. What's fascinating here is how Frederick Tinmark's master's thesis completely flips our intuition on this.
Oh, right. The partial shot study.
Yeah. He studied elite golfers executing full drives, but he also tracked them hitting partial wedge shots from 40, 55, and 70 meters.
And what did he find?
His findings showed that elite players utilize this exact same proximal to distal sequencing pattern even on a delicate 40-meter pitch shot.
Wait, really? They're still firing the pelvis, hitting the brakes, firing the torso for a tiny little half swing.
They are. We usually associate this chain reaction strictly with distance, right? But it is equally vital for pinpoint accuracy. Well, think about human anatomy for a second. Your proximal muscles, the glutes, the core, the lats, they're massive stable force generators compared to the distal muscles in your forearms and wrists.
Right, my forearms are pretty small compared to my core.
Exactly. And research into human motor control proves that a given force can be generated much more accurately by a large, strong muscle than a small, weak one.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
By letting your big body segments drive the sequence, you dramatically minimize the speed-accuracy trade-off. You aren't forcing tiny, twitchy wrist muscles to perfectly time the club face at impact.
Even for a finesse shot, you don't want to be all hands and arms. You still need that stable body-driven engine.
Right.
But, this introduces a really obvious logistical hurdle. If the secret to the perfect swing is a rapid sequence of overlapping decelerations, how do you even see that happening?
Yeah, that's the hard part.
We're talking about fractions of a second here.
And that has historically been the biggest struggle in golf sports science. Measuring complex, three-dimensional human movement at high speeds is incredibly difficult.
The sources mention a debate between two different models.
Right. For years, the industry was divided by this debate between the kinetic link method and the kinematic sequence method.
The source material gets pretty heavy into the geometric weeds on this. They mention things like the perpendicular to spine plane.
Oh, the PTS plane, yes.
Can you break that down for us? Are they saying the older method tried to take a fully 3D twisting human body and squash it onto a flat grid?
Essentially, yes. The older kinetic link method, which was used by systems like Xenolink, tried to project a 3D swing onto a flat 2D plane, that PTS plane.
So how does that work?
You can visualize it as drawing a line across the golfer's hips, another across their shoulders, and then mathematically projecting those moving lines onto a flat sheet of glass.
Okay, that sounds like a map-making problem. Like when cartographers take a 3D globe and peel it flat to make a 2D map. Suddenly, Greenland looks like it's the size of Africa because of the distortion. Is that kind of distortion what was happening to the swing data?
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. Because the golf swing doesn't actually happen on a flat sheet of glass.
Obviously not.
Golfers tilt, their spines bend, their shoulders rotate on varying inclines. So projecting those movements onto a 2D plane created massive out-of-plane errors.
So the data was just wrong.
Basically, the system would read the data and report rotational speeds that simply did not exist in reality, purely because of that map distortion effect you just described.
Wow.
And on top of that, it used a flawed metric called the composite arm.
Composite arm.
Yeah, it measured a straight line from the middle of the shoulders to the hands, treating the upper arm, the elbow, and the wrist as one solid, unbending block of wood.
But the arm obviously folds and bends during a swing, so the older data must have been incredibly noisy.
Extremely noisy.
How did the newer kinematic sequence method solve that mapping problem?
Well, the kinematic sequence method, which TPI and others champion, they abandoned the flat plane entirely. They use local anatomically based coordinate systems.
That's a true 3D.
True 3D. By placing sensors directly on the body, the math effectively builds internal axes inside the golfer's joints.
Oh, wow.
It measures the pelvis and the thorax, rotating around their own individual up and down axes in genuine 3D space.
So the tracking system moves with the body segment.
Exactly, completely eliminating those 2D projection errors. It also isolates the lead upper arm from the club, so you can see exactly when the arm decelerates to snap the wrists.
I can see why that's the gold standard if you have an indoor lab and can strap a dozen electromagnetic sensors to a player.
Sure.
But most people listening right now are using their smartphones.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a really fascinating part of the research. AI monocular 3D pose models.
Getting 3D data from a single 2D video.
Yeah. Taking a standard video from an iPhone and having an AI reconstruct a 3D skeleton of the golfer. The technology feels like science fiction.
It does, but we have to look at the data with extreme caution. The source material evaluates several of these AI models using a specific metric called sequence PAMPJPE.
I saw that acronym in the research. Sequence PAMPJPE. It looks like a typo. What does that alphabet soup actually measure? And why should a golfer recording their swing care?
It measures temporal consistency. A lot of AI models are good at looking at a single frozen frame of video and guessing where your elbow is.
Right.
But golf isn't a static picture. Sequence PAMTJPE evaluates how well the AI tracks the continuous motion, and the timing of those velocity peaks across the entire timeline of the swing.
Okay, so timing is key.
And they evaluated an AI model called Vibe-E using this metric, and the results were deeply concerning for anyone trying to learn from their iPad.
I was reading the evaluation report on Vibe. If you're a coach relying on that data, it's actually kind of terrifying.
It is a worst-case scenario for a student. We established earlier that in a flawless swing, the arm, thorax, and pelvis rotations should peak and begin decelerating about 120 milliseconds before impact.
Right, the brakes.
But when the Vibe AI analyzed the video, it literally hallucinated the data. It incorrectly predicted that the thorax and arm rotation peaked exactly at the moment of impact.
Which is completely wrong. I'm assuming that's because smartphone cameras have too much motion blur at 120 miles an hour for the AI to see the club.
Motion blur plays a small part, but the bigger issue is the training data itself. Models like Vibe-E are generally trained on enormous data sets of normal human movement. People walking, sitting, maybe dancing.
Just everyday stuff.
Yeah, exactly. They're not trained on the violent, high-speed, complex, torsional biomechanics of a professional golf swing.
So the AI looks at the blur, doesn't understand the physics of the whip, and just assumes everything reaches max speed when the club hits the ball.
Yes.
Which means if I am a coach looking at that AI output, I am going to pull my student aside and say, your sequence is completely broken. You aren't decelerating your body.
Yep, and I would put them through drills to fix a timing problem that they don't actually have, effectively ruining their swing.
That's the danger, right? Using flawed data is significantly worse than using no data at all.
Fortunately, the technology is adapting. The research highlights the on-form model, which took a different approach. They trained their neural networks specifically on proprietary golf swing data.
So the AI understands what a golf swing is supposed to look like.
Exactly. And because of that, it boasts a 94.6% accuracy rate in matching sequence peaks against those $10,000 optical tracking labs.
94.6% accuracy from a single lens in your pocket. That is a game changer. So, okay, we know the AI can sometimes mess up the sequence on a screen, but let's look at the human element. What actually happens on the course when our own brains misread the sequence and we physically mess up the movement?
The most prevalent mistake in amateur golf is what biomechanists call the steepener, and it is a direct failure of proximal to distal sequencing.
Okay, the steepener.
We know the lower body has to initiate the downswing to start the chain reaction, but the vast majority of high-handicap golfers do the exact opposite.
Because our upper body, our chest and arms, they just feel much stronger in our everyday lives, like when we lift a heavy box or throw a ball.
Precisely. So golfers get to the top of the swing and instinctively try to pull the club down violently with their shoulders.
Right. It's that lumberjack impulse. You get to the top, look at the ball, and your brain just screams, "Chuck the wood!"
And that impulse destroys the sequence instantly. When you aggressively spin your shoulders to start the downswing, two catastrophic things happen.
What's the first?
First, it throws the club path outward, causing the shaft to come down very steep, which results in that classic, weak, over-the-top slice.
Ah, the dreaded slice.
And second, and more importantly for the engine of your swing, firing the chest early puts a hard brake on the pelvis.
Wait, if I spin my upper body, it actually stops my lower body from moving?
It is pure Newton's third law. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Okay.
If you are sitting in a swiveling desk chair with your feet off the ground, and you violently twist your shoulders to the left, your hips and the chair will naturally push back to the right.
Right, I can picture that.
The same thing happens in the golf swing. By firing your upper body early, you push back against your hips, your lower body stalls out entirely. The sequence dies, there is no whip effect, and your arms and hips all arrive at the ball at the exact same time.
So what does this all mean? Which brings us to the medical side of the sources we reviewed. The research explicitly links this broken sequence to a pretty grim laundry list of injuries.
It's essentially a recipe for chronic pain. If you start your downswing steep by firing the upper body, your brain subconsciously realizes a fraction of a second later that you're going to smash the club head straight down into the dirt.
So you have to save the shot.
Right. To save the shot, your body is forced to create massive compensatory movements. You have to aggressively side bend your spine away from the target and bow your chest out just to shallow the club path right before impact.
And doing that lateral crunch with your spine while rotating at maximum velocity is how players end up with popped rib heads, intercostal muscle sprains, and severe lower back disc issues.
Exactly. You might see some young, hyperflexible elite players on tour who swing with a lot of side bend, but they ingrained that specific motion as small children.
When an adult amateur tries to manufacture that extreme spine angle just to save a fundamentally flawed sequence, they are putting immense shearing force on their vertebrae.
Yes, it's dangerous.
All right, we've sufficiently outlined the risks of exploding ribs and bad AI. Let's talk solutions. We have transcripts from Athletic Motion Golf and Scratch Golf Academy detailing how to get unstuck.
Right, the practical fixes.
How do these coaches teach a player to actually feel this proximal to distal sequence in the real world?
The most powerful visual from the coaching transcripts comes from Athletic Motion Golf, and they call it the Lazy Susan concept.
Lazy Susan, like the rotating tray on a table.
Exactly. Think about the top of your backswing. You've created a physical gap between your shoulders and your hips. Let's say your shoulders are rotated 90 degrees away from the target, but your hips are only rotated 45 degrees. You have built a 45-degree differential.
You're wound up like a torsion spring.
The amateur mistake is trying to aggressively close that gap by firing the shoulders to catch up to the hips.
But the Lazy Susan concept teaches you to do the opposite.
Yes. You let the pelvis start unwinding back toward the ball, and you let that lower body rotation simply pull the upper body along for the ride. You are trying to maintain that 45-degree gap for as long as possible into the downswing.
The drill they use for this is fascinating. When you start down, you should actively feel like you are keeping your back pointed at the target longer.
Right. You aren't just letting your upper body go limp.
You are actively resisting your brain's urge to spin your chest open. You just let the lower body slide and turn, carrying the upper body structure like it's sitting on a rotating Lazy Susan.
And this ties seamlessly into the postural advice from Scratch Golf Academy. You simply cannot let your lower body lead that sequence if your balance is compromised.
Oh, posture's huge.
A lot of golfers get into their setup posture by just sticking their rear end out and locking their knees. You need to bend forward from the hip sockets, not the waist, and keep your balance squarely under the shoelaces of your shoes.
Why the shoelaces specifically? Why not favor the heels to stay grounded or the toes to stay athletic?
If your weight falls back onto your heels, your pelvis becomes functionally locked. It can't rotate efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if your weight is too far forward on your toes, your brain senses you are falling over and it fires your upper body to counterbalance you.
So right in the middle.
Staying balanced directly under the shoelaces allows the pelvis the freedom to easily lead the downswing, shifting weight to the lead side while maintaining that vital separation from the upper body.
I am still struggling a bit, though, to picture what my right arm, the trail arm for a right-handed golfer is supposed to be doing while my body is unwinding like a Lazy Susan. Do I just pull my elbow tight into my ribs?
The Scratch Golf Academy transcript uses a brilliant analogy here that clarifies the trail arm's role. Think of the motion of tossing a frisbee.
Tossing a frisbee, so I'm throwing my arm out at the target.
Not quite throwing it out. Think about the hinge mechanism. When you toss a frisbee, your throwing arm doesn't detach and fly away from your torso. The upper arm stays relatively stable, and the elbow acts as a fixed fulcrum.
Ah, so the forearm swivels around that joint.
Yes. In the golf downswing, you want to preserve the structural integrity of the triangle formed by your chest and your two arms. You don't want the trail arm extending wildly away from your body.
So as the pelvis turns and pulls the torso, that trail arm simply folds down to your side.
It's a supportive swivel motion that delivers the club head into the back of the ball, rather than an aggressive pushing motion.
So it's all about letting the structure you painstakingly built in the backswing just unwind naturally from the ground up, letting the joints act as hinges rather than engines.
Perfectly said.
To summarize our deep dive today, true power and laser-like accuracy in golf do not come from brute force or swinging out of your shoes. They come from proximal to distal sequencing.
The chain reaction.
It's about letting your pelvis lead the charge, maintaining that gap with your shoulders like a Lazy Susan, and keeping your dynamic balance under your shoelaces. But above all else, it's understanding the fundamental physics of a cracking whip. The deceleration of your larger body segments is what actually accelerates the golf club.
Which leaves us with a fascinating final thought to consider.
Oh, lay it on us.
If the absolute perfect golf swing relies on mathematically precise sequential decelerations of your body segments, are you spending way too much time at the driving range trying to figure out how to speed up when you should actually be learning how to hit the brakes?
That is definitely something to think about next time you are standing on the tee box. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to our channel and share it with fellow golfers, coaches, and PGA
We
professionals.
really appreciate the support.
If there's a topic you would like us to research, analyze, and discuss in a future episode, feel free to send us an email or connect with us through LinkedIn.
We're always looking for new ideas.
Whether your interest is golf biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, swing mechanics, putting, coaching, club fitting, technology, or sports science, we would love to hear from you.
Right, absolutely.
Our team will review your submission, conduct extensive research, analyze the available evidence, and may create a dedicated podcast episode, article, video, or testing project based on your topic.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for being part of the eCoach 360-degree community.